Alrighty then, welcome back to Universe X, and today, as a follow-up to the tournament that just happened, I've actually got Armando on as a special guest one more time.
Thanks for having me back, Chris. Glad to be here.
Of course. It was fun the couple times it's happened, and it's gonna probably continue being fun the next couple times it happens. But TAC Gaming definitely had their best of one webcam regional. If you haven't seen my deck list and little tournament report, go down in the description. It's gonna be there. It went up yesterday, I guess, by the time this video comes out. Yeah, sometimes that gets a little confusing trying to schedule your stuff out and keep it all tracked. But I wanted to bring Armando on because once again, this man, he's on his Drake stuff back to back. He has gotten a top position, 2 back-to-back regionals with actually the same deck archetype. And since we know and love this archetype, I just wanted to kind of get in there, talk about it. Last thing I wanted to go into before we start the discussion, just the normal plugs, man. Like, check out the Facebook group. It's hot fire. There's a lot of information going on in there. You've got the UniX DBS Discord where a bunch of us talk, kind of just shoot it. Oh, is that language? Hold on. Talk about the card game, a bunch of other stuff too. If there's different topics that come out, we'll make different channels, get into there. You've got a blog for this man, right?
I do. I operate Border City Ballers, and if you want to read about an in-depth review of my list, my matchups, the changes, and why I made them, I highly recommend that. I'm going to be sending the link to Chris afterwards. I will have the PPG article probably posted by the time this video is done, and then I'll have another article on my experience at TAC Games. I do currently have my Majin Vegeta top 12 list article review up there, so if you're interested in checking a different deck, check that out. But the reason we're all here is Dark Broly. And like I said previously, I was going to try and keep winning it so I could keep making videos with Chris.
It's a beautiful deck.
I was lucky enough, I got top 5. Unfortunately, just missed out on top 4, but top 5 twice in a row. In terms of jumping right into it, as far as Dark Broly's place in the meta, I do think with the amount of almost main board countering that's happening, I do think Dark Broly, it's not as strong a deck as it used to be. Stuff like the Yellow Vegeta Unison, Violent Rays, stuff that's main decked in red and yellow, which are also very powerful decks right now, really do put a dent in Broly's armor. And the other big issue is in terms of blue decks, not having the benefit of a side game. If you're not aware, presently with the regionals and probably nationals format, we're in a best of 1 format, which is no side deck, 1 round. So you don't get the benefit of swapping out different sideboard cards. And in a deck like Dark Broly, where you really want to focus on consistency and your main engine is so large, you kind of suffer there. So you have to make unnecessary cuts, or sometimes unfortunately necessary cut during your deck building process. So I had a great time in both the tournaments. I can go through my deck list really quickly. I ran the same list for both tournaments. What I really kind of want to focus on is changes for best of 1, what I would take out and what my techs are. So I guess really quickly we can do it, Chris. We'll talk about hits to the main engine I took that I really didn't want to, which are the super rare Uncontrollable Berserker. I'm running 3 copies. 4 of the rare. This one it's the one you want to play most often in most matchups. 3 of the red Dark Broly. I'm not running the Heartfelt Plea, so I found the 4th wasn't necessary. 3 of the blocker Dark Broly. So in our previous videos, Chris and I talked about your Dark Broly ratios, and I do think 4 of each is probably the correct. You could maybe go down to 3 blockers, but unfortunately I had to cut space, and I'll talk about some other changes I made too. So 3 Parasitic Balls. I'm still keeping 4 of the 1-drop Brolys, just because it's so essential to getting your engine. I found if you saw a ball and if you saw a Broly, you could basically get into any of the 6s you wanted anyway, and you only really need 1 of each in the drop.
Correct.
In terms of ball searchers, I cut Toa down to 3 because I was only running 3 balls, and I'm running 2 Mechikabra. Now my old main deck is, I think it was 2 main, 1 side. It might have even been 3 Mechikabra main. Unfortunately, it's too good of a card to cut out of the deck, I found. You want it in your main board for your opponent's linear decks, or even to shut down big kill turns. So stuff like Aggro Sin, or stuff like Dark Rolling Mirror. It was I was like I played this like 3 times and it won me games. Yeah, this card won me the Dark Rolling Mirror every time I played it. It's just super important. I bumped Demigro True Power Unleash up to 3. If you're playing against blue, particularly Baby or Invoker, if you don't see this, you're in a lot of trouble. And if you see this on curve, you're probably going to have a little bit of an easier game. On that same note, I did test Heartfelt Plea. And we can do a mini discussion about Heartfelt Plea after a quick rundown on my deck list. But I ended up changing them for 2 Son Goku True Fighting Spirits. Mm-hmm. I found the value of True Fighting Spirit as 1, counter deterrent, 2, a Self-Awakener, and 3, a swing to get under Raise or the Vegeta Unison was really worthwhile. 3, Furthering Destruction Champa. If you've read any of my lists or see me talk about the deck, you know I think this card's awesome. If I could fit 4, I probably would. 2 Super Kamehameha in the main board. This is a card I would have always sided, but in best of 1 format, you need it to answer Floodgates. And against launch, it's great because it can snipe the Piccolo Jr. Alliance card. So this was an MVP. I'm actually considering moving this to my best of 3 main deck because of how well it performed. Your super combos are obvious. I did switch to the draw 2 super combos. Previously, I was running the draw 1. This is the bottom deck draw 2. Just because my deck didn't have the consistency that I wanted it to, so I wanted to be able to see more cards. 3 Massane Brainwashed. This is something you should be getting if you want to play Dark Broly, only because in future formats, this is going to be critical to help you against Victory Strike. It's also going to... The fact that it's an overwhelm, I wish I had played this card more. I misplayed a little bit sometimes and comboed with it when I should have kept it in my hand to overwhelm and refilter my drop area. So I really do like Brainwashed at 3. You could go 2, but 3 to 4 I think is the correct number. Another fun... Exactly. 100%. I like I said, this is probably a main board change too, where I'm going to run 3. I did really interesting. This had never happened to me before. So in the Dark Broly Mirror, there are a couple ways to play it. I like to try and starve my opponent, not swing at them, keep them at 6 life, so they have to have a suboptimal turn, and then I can awaken them defensively. I'm not running Heartfelt, so I don't care if my opponent does that to me, but most Dark Broly players are running Heartfelt Plea, and if you make them awaken defensively and it's in their hand, it gives them a dead card, which is really nice. So the opponent I was playing actually activated Battle to crit himself on his turn. That way he can awaken. And I thought, I had never seen that before, and I thought, man, that is really high level, that I left him at 6 life, he took his own life with Activate Main, swung, critted himself, and then awakened. And I was like, wow, that's really... it was a really interesting play. 2 Power Burst, 2 Petrification. In testing, I had 1 Petrification, and I found I used it a lot. So I was talking with a couple different people, and it ended up being that the end result was that 2 Petrification is important, because if you don't see it, you're in trouble, especially against stuff like that Piccolo Jr. SS3 Tag Team, I wanted to run 2, but I'm already at 52 cards, and it's not a 30k, so... 1 up for me. The Kai Secret. If you don't have Kai Secret, you could run Heroine's Lineage. It very similar. 2 Bardock the Tenacious. I run a lot of negates normally. My other main board I think was it was 4 Power Burst, 2 Petrification. But in any event, Bardock the Tenacious is great because it functions like a Black Nimbus. So if I couldn't close out a game and I hadn't overwhelmed yet, I would play this defensively on my or play this on my turn, swing with it, and then I knew my opponent probably couldn't kill me. The sad concession, I had to get rid of the Toa Unison for the Piccolo Unison. I love the Toa Unison, but Piccolo being a 1 energy swing that's also hand filter, it's too important in best of 1. Best of 3, I'd probably still run Toa. But those are basically all the changes I've made out of my deck. I think it's as consistent as it's going to be for best of 1, sadly. I put in a lot of 30Ks. You'll see I added the Demigers. I added one Black Mash, the Brainwash Saiyan, just to increase my mill. So that's basically what I did in terms of changes for my deck list.
No, definitely dig it. There's a lot of cool interactions that go into just Dark Broly in general, but like Best of One is definitely a kind of weirder game. Like I said before, I have my list in another video, but we have a lot of just congruent pieces. I mean, lots of Dark Brolys do, but like with the Mass Sand, Brainwash No More, I just learned a thing or two because I would have actually never have thought to crit myself to not be starved off Awakening. But at the same time, like he's also like a crucial sequence piece. Like he's free, and that means a lot in a deck where sometimes most of the time you close out the game on 3, sometimes 4 energy, and you have a lot of 2 energy plays. But the way you can use him is just absolutely amazing. You hit that magical 6 number, you overwhelm for him, you put 3 back, you swing with him, you activate your leader effect, you have 3 more in your graveyard, and then you just have to swing with your leader and activate battle that dude to the grave. Not only is he going to waste himself by going to the overwhelm, but now you're at that magical number of 7 again and can produce another Dark Broly body. He's just a fluid piece for the deck. Along with that, Tenacious, if you're not on the wave, you honestly should be, because there's a lot of decks right now that just go wide, and that's the one thing Dark Broly has a problem with. If your opponent swings with 5 15Ks, you are losing 5 cards in hand to not take damage from that, and that is disgusting. So like when you have a card like Tenacious, you can really sit there and know that your opponent's getting their leader swing. I mean, yes, their unison swing, but there's actually even more for that because there's Kai, and I know it is a very pricey card, so I can't just bank on you guys having Kai, but I know like literally for me, I didn't play Petrification because one, I feel like I needed to practice a little bit more with the card before I like knew exactly how to roll with it. But I ran 2 Tenacious and 3 Protector of the Peoples along with the Kai, and I found that really in a best of one format where there's a lot of aggro going on, it shut down a lot of people. Like Face Majin Vegeta had a blocker up, played Tenacious during my like aggression the previous turn, and then he swung with his Majin Buu dual attack, and I just blocked it, activate battle on Kai, and that locked out his entire turn, and he had to just sit there and know that I was opening up with a Kai, 3 bodies, my leader, and I had a full hand. So that was just like murder she wrote. But there's a lot of like different areas you need to pay attention to with best of one, and aggro is definitely going to perform in a different space there when you can't side for it. And I think that's what a lot of these builds have to kind of go for. Then the last, sorry, Keto.
I was going to just interject there and comment. So the big thing is Black doesn't have a lot of good interaction cards with your opponent, right? There's not a lot of good counters in Black. And the good counters there are really aren't good in Dark Broly. Like, I think Rebellion Hammer is a great card. If you're running Gogeta Xeno, you should have Rebellion Hammer. There's no way I'm warping cards from my drop area to play a counter when I can Super Kamehameha for free in Dark Broly. So I think Bardock's super important because it's like a pseudo way of interacting with your opponent, right? Or sorry, Tenacious. Bardock the Tenacious is important because it's a pseudo way of interacting with your opponent in Dark Broly. And I do love the Protector of the People. I run 2 in my sideboard in best of 3 because, like you said, it's the only Black floodgate and by extension the best Black floodgate. So
well, I mean, it's like it's crazy because you put your opponent in some weird spaces depending on the deck. Like you could lose 5 cards from your hand because they have a wide board, or you can play 1 Protector of the People, discard a card you already wanted in the grave, and then they swing once and you combo, you activate battle, but now you're up 5k permanently, and they swing again. You might not even need to use another 5k. It's like a huge deterrent, and it makes sure that they can't just bleed your hand by going wide. That's why I like personally playing it. The other thing that I find very, very weird about best of one, people do fear Dark Broly. Why? Because we put 30Ks on board for actual free. And so, yeah, you're going to main hate into it. And like Armando was saying before, Dark Broly is in an interesting position to where if you don't see any cards that interact with our deck badly, you will get ran over, like trampled badly. But that being said, it doesn't take much for red to main violent, for blue to main, I mean, blue has to main heroic prospects, it's just what they do. Dormant is still one of the better negates in the game. But people will main Big Amori on top of that. I lost to Lord Slug because I got Big Amori 3 turns in a row and then Dormanted, and he decked me out. Like, I literally could not function as a player.
I think that's wild. And to run more than one copy of Big Amori in best of one is wild. I don't agree with that. I think like you're hedging your bets for playing. You're hedging your bets to play against Dark Broly or Red Broly because those are the only decks that works on. I don't agree with at all. That was a gamble he took, like specifically decided to main deck against you.
He didn't play it twice. He didn't play 2 copies. He played it and Roshi'd it back. Like I got Big Amori twice, and then I got Dormanted, and I was just like, holy crap. And I was just waiting for the Kai, and it was in the last 3 cards of my deck. Like, dude drew out my entire deck, and then Kai was in the last 3, and I was like, I can't actually reach this card. So, I mean, it just be what it is. But I feel like the hard part about making Dark Broly work in a situation like this is keeping your ratios so that you don't, I don't know, flip 5 cards and none of them were 30Ks against Jordan Markle. Or you can have your tech pieces and they actually work. Like, I ran a 50 card list and I think I had 27 30Ks and I still was able to flip and whiff a 5. Like, it just sometimes happens. But you also have to keep in mind that your opponents are likely going to be running these floodgates, so you have to be able to attack through these floodgates. I had a game against Sin where he stuck a Vegeta, or the Vegeta Unison on me, and thought he had me locked down. And what ended up happening under that Vegeta Unison was a Piccolo Unison, the +1 to drop a 3rd card in Grave. I played Supreme Kai of Time, Supreme Kai Time's Choice. That found my Mecha Gabora. I then played the Mecha Gabora and searched a ball. And then he got swung on by the Piccolo Unison, the Mecha Gabora, the Overwhelm, and then my leader shotgun with a Champa behind it. And that closed out his last 5 life. He was just like... Yep. But I mean, I feel like you have to have stuff to swing under the radar because otherwise the floodgates will just stop you from playing the game.
That is another advantage of the Mechikabra, is that it can swing through a floodgate or swing through most of the floodgates anyway, like the Vegeta or the Violent Rays. So I think Mechikabra has a place in the deck in best of 1. I wouldn't probably run it in more than 2 just because it's a non-30K and it's deck space, but I think the matchups you need it for are the matchups you need it for.
I mean, you can face Majin Vegeta and you go first and you call ball and then just push their life into the ball, like, awful. I mean, Dark Broly, he just said it won him the matchup. My second launch fight, like, literally capped the game because I saw most of his life. And that's actually another cool thing about interactions, like launch flipping their life up and down over and over again. I started using the red Broly to EX evolve and critting the life that he had not flipped face up. I was like, yeah, that assimilates, I can stay where it is. And I was critting things, and they were just like hitting the grave. And then on top of doing that, I was just like, I knew he had the Piccolo, so pushing it into his hand, I just ended up playing Mechikabura, calling Piccolo Jr. 2. And it was just bad because I knew like the next turn, the next 3 life, there was like an assimilate and a 5K and another 5K, and I was just kind of trying to dance around them slowly. There's a lot of interactions, and I was just like really happy to play in a tournament again and kind of get those creative juices going. But
yeah, good. Matchups in general. I did want to touch on the Dark Broly just because you said it there with the Mechikabra. Knowing when to play the Mechikabra is huge in that matchup. You don't just slap it down on 2 energy every game. That's terrible. You can only do it once every 2 turns. So when you play it, it's gotta matter. In the Dark Broly mirror, you want to do it before your opponent's awaken turn. So if I'm going to awaken you when you're at 3 or 4 energy, I want to slap down Mechikabra, call out the Dark Broly 6. Now your only real option is going to be to overwhelm. You probably have a fat drop because you haven't been doing anything beforehand. Then I want to get you to 4 or 3 life. It depends whatever your best case scenario is, but yeah, that's that would be my thoughts on the Dark Broly matchup. Is when you play your Mechikabra is the most important. And if you're running Petrifications, when you play that matters. And if you're not running Petrifications, I hope you're running Banisher Fu. And it's when you play Banisher Fu, it's the other side.
You can really destroy your opponent. Like you just said, like your awakening turn is your strongest turn. You like +6, you plus more if you nab a Heartfelt, but you're normally going to go off. So that's like the best time to Mecha Warrior person. And then I personally, just interjecting, I feel like the second best time, there are certain points in the game where, I mean, like Dark Broly versus Dark Broly is like a huge tempo. You guys both have your Graves, you both have your hands. Neither of you guys can take 30k hits. So it's like, you're just like trading back and forth with life. And some of the most backbreaking turns, like this was a bit ago, but like on 4 energy, I knew it was tapping out, but SR Broly into his dude, removing it. I played a Demigra, removed another guy, got a swing in, and then I used my last 2 energy after clearing his board to just call Dark Broly 6. And it's like, did I touch his life? No. But he's literally staring at 2 Dark Brolys, a Demigra, and a leader, and he has no board and cannot actually function unless he plays a Demigra himself. Yeah, there's 2 windows, but he listed the best absolute window for locking down your mirror match. Because it will hurt. If you have your cards all ready to go and your opponent 6-drop Zarks Broly, you're just kind of like, alright.
Likewise, as the Dark Broly player, that's why you always want to. I like to try and keep my drop at 6 to 7 cards. That way, if they do Mechikabra on me or they have something to stop my Dark Broly, I can overwhelm instead, and I don't lose too much value. And that's just another thing to keep in mind, right? Is your overwhelm is another solid resource you can use. Then you can just overwhelm and restack 3 for your next turn. In terms of matchups, I played against basically everything. I played against in PPG. I played against Launch Invoker, Launch, Set 10 Goku, Soul Striker Goku, Surge Cell, Dark Broly, and Aggro Sin. My loss was to Red Green Launch. That was Robert Ritsu piloting. I think Launch is the hardest matchup. It was also my only loss yesterday when in TAC. I think Red Green Launch is a really difficult matchup for Dark Broly just because they can draw so much, and I don't get to practice it enough, and that's another huge issue. In terms of competitive play, you really want to practice against as many meta decks as you can, just so you can understand the ebb and flow of how they work. Because getting caught by surprise always feels bad. Yeah. It took me, I want to say, 3 matchups before I realized, unless I can swing with the second card, it's not worth attacking Launch with my leader because I'm just giving them more cards than I'm getting. So
they have the ability to pull stuff out of nowhere. Like I faced Launch twice yesterday, and admittedly I hadn't played against Launch with Dark Broly. So the first game was like really close and I lost, and I was like kind of wondering why, and I was thinking about doing stuff. I'm meticulous. I'll record my matches and I'll just kind of look at them afterwards just to be like, And then when I faced it the second time, I tried a different like strat, kind of was able to starve the dude of cards. And shout out to Bad Beats CCG because it was one of their players. But then at the end, I thought I had a dominating presence. I stuck a Demigra, I had 2 Dark Brolys on board and my blocker just sitting up. And I had another Demigra ready to go. I was like, I am about to put this dude in the trash can. And he just turned his, he dropped his Piccolo, was able to turn it sideways and boost this dude to 76k. And he burned me for my 3rd life. And then this guy comes in double strike, and I was like, I was like, no. And I was right about to like scoop, because it's Dark Broly. Like you're not getting shotgun for 76k and just be like, great, no super combos. I live this. But then I actually remember that I have wrinkles in my brain, not a completely smooth brain, and I counted up the combo and threw straight RNGesus. My entire board plus my entire hand equaled 80k. And so, but the whole point was like this dude just turned around and just took my entire board in hand, and then we sat there top decking. And just in case you don't know, top decking against the Launch deck feels terrible because every turn I can't charge. I draw 1 card and I leader skill for 1 card. That's it. Like that's literally it. And he just needs to draw the right chain of cards.
Yeah, flipper. He just needs to draw a flipper.
And so, like, it was definitely stressful. Like, I pulled it out, but, like, Launch has the ability to come out of nowhere with just a crazy string.
A tip on the Launch matchup, too, if you have any kind of drop removal, Dark Broly specifically, obviously, they have the super rare Launch that lets them combo with it from the drop when they're 5k. So a good opponent's probably going to attack with their leader, flip back to 5, play a battle card, swing with the battle card, and then combo with the one in the drop. So if you can negate that second swing, or if they don't combo with it, on your turn, it's great to play the rare Broly and remove their launch from the drop area. That way it denies them a card, because launch already has a massive hand, and being able to combo with cards from the drop area, it's just borderline unfair.
It's very true. But despite that massive hand, you are swinging with 30Ks on a 5K or 10K leader, and so like that is something like, don't be completely daunted, because if they violent raise you, they violent raise you. But chances are, if a Ebro gets through, they do have to drop like 3 cards minimum to like not take damage. So it's like they have the hand, but I mean they kind of suck at blocking 30Ks just as much as you do personally. Like, so it's just kind of rough.
Other tough matchups, I think that are important, just acknowledge play lines and whatnot, is against Invoker and against Blue Baby. And my first few times playing against Invoker, I tried to stay high life, thinking that'll stop them from burning me. That's not how you play the matchup. You take your life as much as you can. You pray that you see True Fighting Spirit. You pray that you see Demigra. You board them as early as you can, and you just pick at their hand. And hopefully they either have to get rid of enough of their extra cards that they can't do what they want to do, or you can push through so many of their negates that you can get your damage in at the end. In that Invoker situation, if you're going to give any of your battle cards Double Strike and Dump, make sure you put the red ball on them. That way they can't Emperor's Death Beam, the minus 30k. If you give your card the red ball, the plus 5k goes on the battle card, so it'll be a 35 base instead of a 30, and you can avoid the Emperor's Death Beam. So that's another thing to consider.
That's huge. That's actually really huge.
So Launch and Invoker and Baby are tough matchups. You almost want to play a hand control game, but you also want to swing as much as you can just to force them to use their negates. In terms of, this is another reason, actually, if we want to pivot back to Heartfelt Plea. So Heartfelt Plea, great card. I like it. In terms of its value in Dark Broly, to me, it wasn't really worth playing. I understand it's a good card. I understand it's a free triple strike. The only issue I have is it doesn't help you win matchups that you're already going to lose. Like, it helps you win more against matchups where if you play properly, you're probably going to be favored anyways. My big concern about he's a 5-drop, so he gets countered by the blue hit counterplay that your baby players are going to run, and then you just sacked one of your 30k Brolys for it, which just so it can come back to your hand and be a dead card. It's not a real true draw too, because it negs itself, but you play it from your hand, so you lose 1 card from your hand. Then you draw 2, but you also lose a 30k card on board that's combo power. Triple Striker, awesome, not combo power. So really your best value is if they crit. But at that point, it's a lot of setup when I can, instead of 1-drop ball into Red Broly into Awaken, I can just 1-drop Broly into Red Ball into the rare and warp a card out of their hand. And it's basically the same as critting them. So I tested Heartfelt Plea a lot. I ended up dropping it for the True Fighting Spirits. In Best of 1, I just don't think you have the deck space.
It's too much of a variable, I think, in Best of 1. The only thing that like I respect, I think, about the card is, personally, if you can't tell, I'm a Heartfelt Plea stan. The personal thing for me is just Dark Broly has, its early game is just cat paws. Its mid game is very, very, very strong. Like, you have one of the strongest mid games currently in the meta.
Tiger Claws.
However, once your awakening turn is your most powerful turn, and then the turn after you awaken generally is your second most powerful turn. But once you awaken, your value starts kind of dropping in terms of your card advantage. You're only seeing, 1 to 2 cards per turn, depending on how your deck works, depending on the cards you put in, maybe a few more. But you start dwindling. Your resources are finite after you awaken. And this kind of gives you a weird space to where your mid game is very strong, but the moment you start tipping into late game, you're just doing the same things you've been doing the past couple of turns. Whereas some of these decks out here can just keep building momentum from there. If you face blue, if you face yellow, their late game is going to feel oppressive and evolve, and yours is just going to stay the same. So the only thing that Heartfelt does to me is it gives me the opportunity, if it's drawn in sequence, it's not always drawn in sequence, but if it is, it gives me the opportunity to attempt to just clap the game closed before we can get to like your 5 energy plays, which will likely outvalue anything I can really put out. That's the only reason why I like it. It's like, it doesn't always get drawn on time. You can draw it later and be like, you're just gonna get tucked with this super combo. That I will acknowledge, like, that can really suck. But there are just a lot of times where, you know, your opponent has already used their God Ceiling, they've already used X, Y, or Z, and then you just put a triple strike down, and you already have a deck with a bunch of free cards. So when they have to allot either combo power or a massive, like, mitigation to a triple strike that just came out, you then have to still worry about all the other Dark Broly cards. So it's like, I definitely took it out as well for best of 1. I just personally like the ability to sometimes just have a card just be an instantaneous threat. Because most of the people, they have the feeling of where they can be with Dark Broly. Until I'm at 2 life, I'm not in danger, because everything's a single strike. And then you just put a triple strike on board and they're like, I don't want to take that. Like, I don't want to take that. And I kind of wish, like, yes, Dark Broly would be a little bit more broken, but if we had like a double striker Dark Broly, it's just like everything is a single strike. And that's cool because Champa exists, but you can look at the energy, you can kind of... Dark Broly gives very, very, very predictable damage. And you get to take it one at a time. So you get to kind of see all your life, you get to see all your options, and then as long as you're above 2, you're not in danger of dying.
In terms of using Champa in the deck, just because it's a card I love using so much, your best times you want to use it, everyone thinks you get your opponents 2 and you Champa them, right? That's super situational. Yeah. Exactly. A lot of times, that is the play you want to make. If your opponent happens to be at 2 life, yeah, you can swing. More often than not, they're going to power burst, they're going to sparking negate because they know the double strike's coming. If you have the energy up, they know the double strike's coming. So your best plays are to get them from, like you said, 5 to 3 and then 3 to 1. Then their sparking's gone, right? So if they tapped out earlier, thinking you would only do 1 damage and they could Dimension Magic the next one, you just took that opportunity away from them. So that's definitely the correct way to use Champa.
And it's a basic logic, but like, it's been here in the game since set 1. Like, yes, this game's a little faster, there's more double strikes, more triple strikes, so sometimes you don't feel that way. But in set 1, there were a lot of times where you stayed at 1 life. And when you're at 1 life, every swing can be lethal, and so every negate's about to get bursted, every block is about to turn sideways. And so when you do exactly what Armando was saying and you drop them from 5 to 3 and then from 3 to 1, the game becomes a totally different game, and even more so against Dark Broly, because nobody wants to be at 1 life getting hammered on by
30k swings on.
That's like just every single negate getting put in the way, and then eventually you're out of negates, and you just have to hope that you can close out the game before. So I mean, that's the proper way of using Champa. And especially not putting them at 2, putting them at 1 instead, because some people would be like, oh, well, I just gave them more cards. Okay, but how stupid are you going to feel if you put them down to 2, swing, and you're like, I've got Champa, and then they sparking negate you, versus them being at 1, and now they have to go, okay, I have to start from this base 30 and combo against it. It's a completely different state of game. That latter is definitely less advantageous to what they have to do. They have to have it or they die.
And even if, like, again, going back to the Bardock the Tenacious, if you think you have a good defensive turn, get them to 1, because they can't crack you back, and now they're going to have to save and pass defensively, and you can just pick apart their hand, right? Like, if I'm at 1 life, I can't hold on to my Sparking Negate anymore. I have to keep my energy up for that. So you have less fear of a crackback. So if you have a situation where you're going to like Bardock the Tenacious them, or you have a Floodgate in your hand, yeah, get them to 1. They're not going to be able to kill you on the next turn anyway. But
actual.
And I always love talking Dark Broly with you, Chris. Like I said, it's been my favorite deck for a long time. I'm going to try and keep topping with a new build so we can do more videos. If it's cool, I would like to throw a couple shout outs to the people who helped me work on the deck. Number 1, UniX DBS. Discord's great. We talk about Dark Broly a lot in there. The videos are always really helpful. Giancarlo from Bad Beats, Sublet from Bad Beats helped me work on the deck. They're awesome, good testing partners. Hermit Style Discord, Jimmy and Mike, those guys are great. Shout out to my new Canadian team that I'm up with, Team Berserk. They did a lot of good testing with me against Blue, helped me learn how to play the deck. So it's strong showing in the last couple tournaments. We've had a couple people in the top 16s consistently. So yeah, I love the deck. I'm going to keep playing it. I'm going to keep talking about it. So I'm going to be publishing kind of in detail articles about my matches and my play style. So now that the tournament's done, I'm going to work on a spicy new build, hopefully for the next one at the end of April. So we'll see what happens.
I am so because I don't want to sign up, but there's still open registrations for both the Mays, and I'm like, in the first one in May would be this format, but the next one in May I believe would be I don't know.
Play in April. You can play with me. Play in April. You can play with me.
Let me see about that time off. But thank you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you look in the description to check out his blog, check out all the links, join the Discord, and we'll keep coming back with content. And as long as this deck's still in the meta, we're gonna keep making videos talking about it because it's a vibe. It's an entire vibe.
It is. It's the way. All right. Take care, guys.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time inside Join Universe X. Later.